Welcome to Storytimer. Patricia A. Anderson. Patricia A. Anderson lived on the east side of Indianapolis. She had an 18-year-old daughter named Cynthia. Patricia worked as a loan adjuster for the Morris Plan in Indianapolis. Saturday evening, July 28, 1973, Patricia was home alone in her apartment at 7233 Twin Oaks Drive. Cynthia was out on a date that night. A man and his wife happened to be taking a walk on that warm evening when they saw smoke coming from an apartment. The man ran toward the fire, and as he approached the door, a young man ran out past him. Patricia Anderson had been raped, murdered, and set on fire. The young man said, "Don't bother her, she's already dead." He had shoulder-length hair and appeared to be in his 20s. He was estimated to be about 5 feet 5 inches tall. Patricia was found with her nightgown pushed up around her neck. Was it just pushed up, or was it used as a ligature? The news article does not say. She had been viciously stabbed multiple times and set on fire. She had been stabbed in the face, neck, and rib cage. Her daughter Cynthia returned home from her date while police and fire officials were still on the scene. What a terrible and devastating loss. I don't think any of us can imagine what that must have been like for Cynthia. Is Patricia Anderson's murder related possibly to the murder of Gene Crouch? Those two violent crimes happened so close together. It's possible. But the teenage perpetrator of Gene Crouch's murder, Anthony Wayne Hall, he was 17, and he was raping young women in his own neighborhood. That seems to have been his hunting ground. He might have gone elsewhere, but I kind of doubt it. Gene was murdered August 2nd, 1973, and Hall had raped another lady earlier on July 20th, just down the street, at his own home. Both of those victims were marched at gunpoint to a second location. He didn't enter the home of either of those victims. Steven Timothy Judy is potentially available for this murder. Judy spent some time in Louisiana, but could be back in Indiana then. He did have a history of entering victims' homes. He conned his way into a home when he was 12 and raped and nearly killed a housewife there with a hatchet. His last murder would also be a mother. I have a theory about Judy and mother types. In 1979, he killed Terry Lee Chastain and her 3 young children in Mooresville. He would ask for the death penalty at his sentence, and he received it in 1981. Can we place Judy in this neighborhood? Very possibly. He worked for Beacon Vans at that time, driving a delivery van. He also worked construction jobs sometimes. And that side of the city was growing exponentially in 1973. There would have been plenty of jobs, plenty of places to move things to. One thing seems to stand out. The murder of Patricia Anderson and the murder of Zetta Mae Warner are very close in time and very close on the map. If Judy was working a construction site in that area for a few months, or making regular deliveries with Beacon Vans in that area, then he could definitely be considered for both. One thing about Steven Timothy Judy is that he told his foster mom before his execution that there were many more murder victims that he was responsible for. I really hope someone will work on a DNA profile of Judy. He had biological siblings. It's not impossible to pull together a DNA profile of him. Bobby Lewis Barnett is also a potential suspect for this assault and murder. He killed Betty Fair Burns on May 18, 1974. He abducted her from an East Side Indianapolis grocery store and assaulted and murdered her in a pet cemetery outside of Indianapolis. He would serve about a decade and a half for Betty's murder. Once he was released, he would attempt the murder of another woman, and I believe he is currently incarcerated as of 2024. Jeffrey Lynn Hand is not available for this murder. He was in custody for the murder of Jeffrey Wayne Thomas and the abduction of Mrs. Carol Thomas just about a month before in southwest Indiana. He would be sentenced to a mental hospital, but later released on a technicality in August of 1976. He was killed in a shootout with police in January of 1978 while attempting to abduct a woman in Kokomo. If evidence is still saved in this case, I hope that they will consider looking at Steven Timothy Judy or Bobby Lewis Barnett. Rest in peace, Patricia A. Anderson.